best entertainment on the earth. Tune in for Comics with Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. I've mentioned Geoff Johns a couple times recently. One for the Final Crisis identity. Which crisis was this? It wasn't Final Crisis. Infinite Crisis, I think, where Superboy went evil. He went all edgelord on that Geoff Johns did. And then I recently mentioned that he was probably not in consideration with who's going to be the new Kevin Feige over at Warner Media DC Land. And that generated a couple of responses. But let me get this one. This is an email from a viewer. It says, "Hey, Perch, I hope you're doing well. In the comments to your video about who should run DC, there were a lot of people saying Geoff Johns should be in charge, but Twitter ruined that." I don't know if Twitter ruined that. But anyway, my question is, in a better world with no Twitter, would you pick Geoff Johns to be in charge, and why? I wouldn't pick Geoff Johns to be in charge, but let me go through the rest of this mail and I can explain why I say that. The mail goes, "I don't dislike Geoff Johns, but I think his work is unremarkable, especially recently. Critical reception of Doomsday Clock, Batman Earth 1, Volume 3, Three Jokers, etc. have all been okay at best, it seems like. Is his Green Lantern run cool? Yes, and I think it'd be fun if you did a sales analysis of it. Okay, I will. But I think his last great thing, and the reason people seem to be more adamant about him, is DC Rebirth, which is cool, but it's also one issue. I just don't see any reason why he should be the person in charge of DC Comics, nevertheless, all of DC Entertainment." That's actually why I would not pick him for exactly that sentence right there. "Would he do a better job than the current people? Sure, but that's not a high bar to cross. That's absolutely true. What would make him better suited than someone like a Scott Snyder or a Joshua Williamson?" I wouldn't pick either of those two either, by the way. "All three seem to be about at the same level to me. What do you think?" Well, okay, great question. And here's how I do the math. So when we're talking about somebody to run DC Entertainment, not DC Comics, but DC Entertainment, the person in charge of the licensing, the movies, the TV, the cartoons, and the comics, and kind of what you do with that entire bundle of properties and making the most money you can out of it and kind of architecting where that all goes. I think that that definitely excludes a Scott Snyder, Josh Williamson. I just don't think that they have the capabilities of operating at that level. That level being somebody who could go make Hollywood deals, somebody who could show run TV shows, somebody who could sign some kind of distribution rights deal, somebody who could license product off to South America and Japan and everything else. And that's not a knock against Snyder. I mean, if Snyder was on for an interview, "Hey, Scott Snyder, by the way, you promised us an interview. When are you come do an interview? Come on, man. I know you're busy, but come on. You've launched like 800 books since we first talked." Anyway, but he doesn't have experience in that area. Neither does Josh Williamson. Neither does any of the current writers or even past writers at DC. None of them are in that space. Dan Didio was not in that space, being in that job. Now, if you were saying somebody to be the creative kind of head of DC Comics, okay, then I think that opens up more. Again, I don't know that Snyder would want the job. Williamson probably needs a couple more years under his belt. Geoff Johns could absolutely do that job. But I just don't think you're talking about somebody who needs to figure out how to go make billion-dollar deals and who has a lot of experience there. Now, Geoff Johns has some experience, absolutely. He's helped, be in the movies and everything else. And certainly there was the controversy with Ray Fisher and everything that went on, which is what you were alluding to with Twitter would never let it happen. But, even there, he was relatively new to that space. And I don't know that he has the game to operate at that level. He might be a good second in charge or not. He might be somebody, and forgive the language, but he might be somebody who needs to be groomed into that position by somebody who's a more seasoned professional who's done a lot of Hollywood merchandise type deals and understands how to take a property like Superman and turn it into a multi-billion-dollar franchise. That's the kind of person you need. And so for that, you're looking for a portfolio manager, somebody who's maybe was the president or CEO of a company like Hasbro, for example, who takes a look at something they produce and how to actually maximize the value from it. You're looking for somebody who was maybe the sole producer of of a big franchise kind of slate of movies. You know, you're looking for like Kathleen Kennedy to come in and run DC Entertainment. I should have started the video just being really serious about that. See how far it would go. I always like to entertain people with. Man, I'm almost tempted to just stop the video, restart it, and just go all in on the. I'll do it for the thumbnail. Why Kathleen Kennedy should run DC Entertainment. We'll see how many people like freak out and start commenting without ever actually getting to this point in the video, which is what, like 5 minutes in, something like that. Anyway, but you need somebody who's at least operated at that level. No, I don't think Kathleen Kennedy would be a good choice. I think that Kathleen Kennedy possesses some of the qualifications, but not necessarily the execution capability. I think Star Wars, Star Wars had more opportunity to be successful than it has been. And I think it's as a portfolio management, whether you love Kathleen Kennedy, don't like Kathleen Kennedy, it has underperformed, I think, the expectations of what they expected it to do. Now, Disney's in it for the long haul. They're making Star Wars rides and Star Wars hotels and everything else. And we'll see where things vet out in another 10, 20 years. This isn't a short-term exercise for them. And the Star Wars brand, people every now and then I see these videos like, the Star Wars brand is forever ruined. It's like, no. I mean, come on now. It's not forever ruined, and it's still making the company plenty of money. It's just dramatically underperformed where I think they hoped it would go. The hope was that they'd be able to produce a movie, once every year, that they'd have a lot of other things spinning out, and they've struggled a bit on how they got there. I think that, they're slowly getting there with Disney Plus, the Mandalorian universe, and everything is picking up some steam. But, there's still a long ways to go. Anyway, I don't mean to talk about Kathleen Kennedy, but you need somebody who is going to be able to at least try and operate like that, but ideally successfully. So, somebody like, somebody like Kevin Feige is a person who takes a look and at these different brands and figures out a way to kind of maximize not just how you make money off all of them, but also how you build a team under you to go execute on it. I would say the person that you need to bring into that role is somebody who knows how to build a great team. Somebody who's not going to try and do the whole job himself or herself, but somebody who actually can, produce at a very high level, very senior level, a executing team that can really go out and do all the different things it needs to do. And to that extent, that's probably also a reason why Geoff Johns isn't ideal for the role. He is, Geoff Johns is a friendly guy, nothing wrong with that, but does Geoff Johns have the network and the pull to bring people in who can run licensing, run international distribution, run, TV development, run all these different pieces and do so at a senior level? It's not in the cards. I think that you can have a Geoff Johns and you can say you're the story architect, and depending on where they go with DC Entertainment and kind of this broader picture, that might be the smartest thing they can do. Get somebody who is really adept at managing a portfolio of brands. This would be somebody who, was one of the kind of executive producers behind like the Fast and the Furious film franchise or something like that. Get somebody who can do that. Pair them up with a Geoff Johns to be the story architect for this universe, which is a job that Geoff Johns might frankly enjoy better anyway, and say, map out a plan for how the comics and the movies and the TV shows and everything else are, somewhat in harmony, and we introduce things in the right way to get maximum value. The part about Geoff Johns that I do think he could do well, if given the opportunity to do it, is to say, all right, let's, if it was a blank slate, how would you roll out these brands, these shows, how would you roll it out in such a way to get the most benefit possible? So would you introduce the Flash first, or would you bring Green Lantern into the mix? Like, what's the timeline for how you do all these things? DC Entertainment needs that architect. The challenge that they've had with the movies is it feels very scattershot. And this is a little bit what Discovery is finding out as well. Okay, you introduced the Justice League, and there was kind of a plan with Superman, then Batman v Superman, and then Justice League. But then you've also got this Joker movie that is not in the same continuity, and it's a different Joker. It's in the Suicide Squad, and the Suicide Squad kind of ties into Justice League, but then it kind of doesn't at the same time. And then you got the Peacemaker show, and that's good, but you're also doing Shazam over here. Where does that connect? Like, there's no cohesion about how all these things fit. And it doesn't mean you have to make all the things fit, but it should at least feel like there's a plan. And right now, it just feels like a bunch of movies are getting made by random people, and nothing drafts off of the other. The thing, as I mentioned in the other video, that Kevin Feige did so successfully, and whether you love the MCU or hate the MCU, he created a world where one property would tee up another property. And so you had this effect where it was like a march forward. Every movie just made a little bit more money, gained a little bit more ground, and the movies that came along behind it started with that built-in momentum of the previous film. And it was just, it sounds hilarious and pathetic to point out that, the fact that Feige was able to put a, in credits little scene into the movie that kind of tees up the next movie. Basically, take the James Bond will return messaging and make a little scene out of it. The fact that the fact they were able to do that is and have it be miraculous like they have, it's amazing. I mean, it's such an obvious, easy idea, but it's responsible for billions of dollars in revenue, which is nuts if you think about it. So anyway, that's DC Entertainment needs somebody who can think at that level, somebody who can introduce these concepts and think that every single time we do a movie, it's going to be stronger than the one before it. And here's why. Well, and I think Geoff Johns can certainly do a lot of that job. He would just need to be tied in with someone else. I don't know. In terms of Geoff Johns, the writer, I think some of the stuff he's done is great. Some of the stuff not great. Some of his stuff doesn't age well. Some does. Blackest Night still, holds up. It's a good comic. Infinite Crisis, not really. That doesn't hold up as well as I remembered. I think the Green Lantern, stuff that he did, definitely it holds up. It's good stuff. The Flash, not as much. His Aquaman run, I mean, it's okay. It's not forgettable, but it's not the most amazing stuff that went on. But anyway, at this point, I mean, he's a good writer, and compared to a lot of what's being written in comics, he's like in a top 10 place in a lot of cases. It's just, but that's as you said in the mail, the bar is low. So, my opinion anyway. Anyway, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Geoff Johns, how does he compare as a comic writer? Where does he fit? Where would he fit for this whole DC universe, DC expanded entertainment business? Where does he fit in? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe. And thanks for listening.